My wife asked for all our passwords just in case. 2 weeks later, I understood why. 6 years together, 4 years married, then my wife started sleeping with her phone face down like it was a second heartbeat. I told myself it was stress, work, anything but what my gut kept whispering. When she asked for our account logins for emergencies, I finally did the one thing a husband shouldn't have to do: prepare for war inside his own home. The first time I noticed it, it wasn't dramatic. It was just the way she held her phone like it could feel pain. Not texting, not scrolling, just gripping it, screen down like she was protecting something alive. And in that quiet, stupid little moment, I felt my marriage shift by half an inch, like a picture frame slowly slipping off a nail. You don't panic yet because it's not crashing, but you also can't pretend you didn't hear the scrape. My wife, let's call her Maya, used to be careless with her phone. Toss it on the couch, leave it in the bathroom, forget it in the kitchen. The kind of person who'd ask me to read a text out loud because her hands were covered in dish soap. Then one day, she started taking it everywhere: kitchen, laundry room, even the 5 steps to grab water. Suddenly, the phone had to come too. I made a joke the first time. "What are you doing, running a secret spy ring?" She smiled without looking at me and said, "Work's been blowing me up." Fine. Normal. But 3 days later, there was a new passcode. I saw her type it, fast, practiced, then angled the screen away like she'd been doing it for years. That's the thing people don't tell you about suspicion. It doesn't hit like lightning. It grows like mold. Quiet, patient. It spreads behind the walls while you keep living your life, telling yourself everything smells normal. Maya and I had been together 6 years, married for 4. The version of our relationship I carried in my head was solid. Not perfect, but real. We had inside jokes so dumb they made us cry laughing. We fought over movies like it was a sport. She loved planning elaborate date nights. I loved making her feel seen in small ways. Her favorite takeout, a coffee exactly how she likes it. Remembering the name of the coworker she secretly hated. We weren't flashy, we were steady. So when the steadiness started to crack, my brain did what brains do. It tried to patch the story. She's stressed, she's tired, she's just going through something. I wanted that to be true. But then there were the calls. Her phone would ring and she'd glance at the screen like it had teeth. Then she'd stand up too quickly, smile too casually, and say, "I'm going to take this real quick." And she'd vanish into the bedroom or the porch. Sometimes she'd close the door behind her. I'd hear the first few words, soft, urgent, then nothing. When she came back, she'd be different. Not guilty exactly, more like she'd stepped out of one world and back into mine, and she had to readjust her face. I started noticing micro things. The way her shoulders stayed tight even when she laughed. The way she stopped asking about my day, like she didn't have the bandwidth. The way she'd answer future questions with a shrug. "Where do you want to go for our anniversary?" "Yeah, we'll see." "We should start saving for a new car." "Mm-hmm." It felt like trying to hold a conversation with someone walking backward into fog. And here's the ugly truth. I didn't confront it right away because I didn't want to be the paranoid husband. I didn't want to be the guy who ruins a marriage by accusing his wife of something she didn't do. So I kept swallowing it, which, as it turns out, is how you poison yourself politely. The moment it clicked happened on a Wednesday. Maya told me she was meeting a friend after work. Totally normal, she did that sometimes. I was running errands nearby and I had this sweet, dumb idea that I'd surprise her. Be romantic, show up, kiss her cheek, make her laugh. I pulled into the parking lot and saw her outside the cafe. Alone. Not sitting inside with a friend, not laughing, not sipping anything. She was pacing near the corner like she was waiting for someone. Phone pressed to her ear, eyes sharp and restless. I stayed in my car because something in me went cold. I didn't mean to listen. I wasn't leaning in like some cartoon detective. But the window was cracked, and when she turned slightly, her voice carried. "I'm telling you, it's almost ready," she said. A pause. "Yeah, starting fresh soon. Starting fresh." Those words landed in my stomach like a wet brick. She laughed once, but it wasn't her laugh. It was the kind of laugh you use to keep someone on your side. A laugh that says, "Don't worry, I'm still with you." I drove away before she saw me, and I hated myself for it. I hated the fact that I didn't march up to her and say, "Who were you talking to? What the hell is starting fresh?" But I didn't, because I was terrified of what she'd say. That night, she came home and told me a story about her friend complaining about her boyfriend. She said it casually, like she was reading a grocery list, and I just stared at her. Not because I didn't believe she met a friend, maybe she did later, but because the ease of the lie made me feel like I didn't know her. I tried to keep my face normal. I tried to keep my voice normal. But my brain was running laps. Phone, passcode, calls, distance, starting fresh. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I lay there listening to her breathe beside me, and my mind did this cruel thing where it replayed our happiest moments like evidence being destroyed in a fire. 2 days later, she asked me for our passwords. We were in the kitchen. I was making a sandwich. She was leaning against the counter, scrolling, not looking at me. Casual posture, casual tone. "Hey, can we put all our account info in one place?" I paused mid-slice. "What do you mean?" "Like bank logins, documents, stuff like that, just in case." "Just in case of what?" She shrugged, still not meeting my eyes. "Emergencies, if something happens." Her voice was too smooth, too rehearsed, like she'd practiced saying it in the car. And what made it worse was it made sense. Adults should probably have that organized. Couples should be able to access important documents. But the timing was wrong. Everything about her had turned into timing. I forced a little laugh. "That's kind of random." She finally looked up, quick, sharp, and smiled. "It's smart." Smart. That word. I nodded like a good husband, like a normal man. But inside, my alarms were screaming. That night, I stared at the ceiling and realized something about myself that I didn't like. I wasn't just afraid of losing her. I was afraid of being made a fool, of being the guy who never saw it coming, of being the punchline in someone else's story. And I could already feel how the gossip would go, how people would tilt their heads and say, "Wow, and he had no idea?" I started telling myself small lies to stay functional. She probably read something online about emergency planning. She's not that kind of person. It's not cheating. It's not cheating. I said it so many times it stopped meaning anything. The next day, while she was at work, I logged into our joint account. At first, everything looked normal. Bills, groceries, gas. Then I noticed the transfers. Small amounts, not enough to trigger an alert, not enough to scream stealing, just enough to be weird. 200 here, 300 there, always spaced out, always labeled vaguely. My mouth went dry. I stared at the screen like it might rearrange itself into something innocent if I looked long enough. I wanted to close the laptop and pretend I never saw it, but I couldn't. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. It's like a crack in glass. You can still drink from the cup, but you're always aware of the fracture. I did what emotionally fragile people do when they're trying to stay rational. I called someone who could be rational for me. An old college friend of mine, Daniel, who became an attorney. Not my attorney, just a guy who understands consequences. I told him what I'd noticed, carefully, like I was handling explosives. I'm not saying she's doing anything, I said, which was a lie. I don't know. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that sounded like a warning wrapped in kindness. Look, I can't tell you what she's doing, but I can tell you this. If you're worried about protecting yourself, the worst time to start is after papers are filed. I swallowed. So what do I do? He gave me options, legal ones, basic ones, things people do when trust is breaking down and they don't want to be financially erased. And I felt sick the entire time he talked, because every step sounded like a betrayal. Not hers, mine. That's what people don't talk about either. When you protect yourself, it doesn't feel heroic. It feels like you're becoming someone you don't recognize, like you're learning a language you never wanted to speak. I sat at my desk that night with the laptop open, and my hands were shaking so badly I had to press my palms flat against my thighs just to steady them. I started listing assets, savings, investments, the house, the car. Things that used to feel like hours suddenly looked like numbers on a battlefield. I kept hearing Maya's voice, just in case. In my head, I answered her, just in case you tried to destroy me. And then I did something I still can't fully describe without tasting shame. I called my mom. My mom is the kind of woman who keeps emergency cash in a cookbook and knows where every birth certificate in the family is stored. She's practical, protective, the type who believes love means being ready. I didn't tell her everything. I couldn't. I didn't want to say out loud that my wife might be plotting to gut me. I just said, Mom, I need you to hold something for me, temporarily. There was a pause on the line, long enough that I could hear the refrigerator hum behind me. Are you okay? She asked. And I lied. Yeah, I said. It's just precaution. My mom didn't push, but her voice changed, like she was stepping into protector mode. Whatever you need, she said. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the dark laptop screen. I looked like a man rehearsing his own funeral. Over the next couple days, I moved things. Not everything, enough to feel like I could breathe. I kept money in the joint account so Maya wouldn't notice. I transferred other accounts into a trust arrangement Daniel suggested under my mom's name. Every click felt like crossing a line. I kept waiting for my conscience to stop me, like a hand on my shoulder saying, this is wrong. But my conscience was busy arguing with my fear, and fear was winning by a mile. Maya came home each night, smiling, kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted to watch a show. And I played the role of husband like I was auditioning for my own life. 2 weeks went by. And then, on a Friday night, she sat beside me on the couch and turned the TV off. That action, turning off the TV, felt like a gun being placed on the table. We need to talk, she said. My throat tightened so fast it felt like my body was trying to prevent words from escaping. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. Her voice was calm, almost careful. I think we should get a divorce. For a moment, I didn't hear anything else. Not the air conditioner, not the traffic outside. Nothing. Just that sentence echoing in my head. Divorce. She said it like she was telling me she wanted to rearrange the furniture. I stared at her face and tried to find the wife I recognized. But her eyes were distant, like she'd already left and was just delivering a message from the future. She gave me the standard reasons: space, identity, feeling lost, the kind of phrases people use when they're trying to make something cruel sound adult. Then she added, almost casually, I've made a lot of sacrifices for you. That hit harder than the divorce word, because it wasn't true, not in the way she meant. I had sacrificed too. We had built a life together. I supported her career changes. We moved closer to her job. I skipped trips so she could do expensive retreats. I wasn't perfect, but I showed up. Hearing her rewrite our marriage into a story where she was the martyr made my anger flare so sharp I felt dizzy. And then she said the line that finally tied the bow on my fear. A friend has been helping me see things more clearly. A friend. My stomach dropped again, lower this time, because that wasn't therapy, it wasn't my sister, it wasn't I've been thinking, it was strategy. I kept my voice controlled because I didn't trust what would happen if I let emotion drive. Oh, I said. Okay. She blinked, like she expected a fight, like she expected me to beg. Instead, I said, if that's what you want, we can figure out next steps. My calm wasn't maturity. It was exhaustion. It was my nervous system going numb, hypervigilance, intrusive replays, the inability to relax in your own home. She went to bed that night without touching me. I sat in the dark and stared at the wall until my eyes burned. On Monday, the papers arrived. Not a conversation, not a gentle plan. Legal documents. And the demands inside them weren't fair, they weren't let's separate peacefully. They were aggressive, specific, hungry. Half the house, half the savings, half my investments, the car. Things that used to feel like hours suddenly looked like numbers on a battlefield. I kept hearing Maya's voice, just in case. In my head, I answered her, just in case you try to destroy me. And then I did something I still can't fully describe without casting shame. I called my mom. My mom is the kind of woman who keeps emergency cash in a cookbook and knows where every birth certificate in the family is stored. She's practical, protective, the type who believes love means being ready. I didn't tell her everything. I couldn't. I didn't want to say out loud that my wife might be plotting to gut me. I just said, Mom, I need you to hold something for me, temporarily. There was a pause on the line, long enough that I could hear the refrigerator hum behind me. Are you okay? She asked. And I lied. Yeah, I said. It's just precaution. My mom didn't push, but her voice changed, like she was stepping into protector mode. Whatever you need, she said. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the dark laptop screen. I looked like a man rehearsing his own funeral. Over the next couple days, I moved things. Not everything, enough to feel like I could breathe. I kept money in the joint account so Maya wouldn't notice. I transferred other accounts into a trust arrangement Daniel suggested under my mom's name. Every click felt like crossing a line. I kept waiting for my conscience to stop me, like a hand on my shoulder saying, this is wrong. But my conscience was busy arguing with my fear, and fear was winning by a mile. Maya came home each night, smiling, kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted to watch a show. And I played the role of husband like I was auditioning for my own life. 2 weeks went by. And then, on a Friday night, she sat beside me on the couch and turned the TV off. That action, turning off the TV, felt like a gun being placed on the table. We need to talk, she said. My throat tightened so fast it felt like my body was trying to prevent words from escaping. She didn't cry, she didn't shake. Her voice was calm, almost careful. I think we should get a divorce. For a moment, I didn't hear anything else. Not the air conditioner, not the traffic outside. Nothing. Just that sentence echoing in my head. Divorce. She said it like she was telling me she wanted to rearrange the furniture. I stared at her face and tried to find the wife I recognized. But her eyes were distant, like she'd already left and was just delivering a message from the future. She gave me the standard reasons: space, identity, feeling lost. The kind of phrases people use when they're trying to make something cruel sound adult.
Then she added, almost casually, "I've made a lot of sacrifices for you." That hit harder than the divorce word, because it wasn't true, not in the way she meant. I had sacrificed too. We had built a life together. I supported her career changes. We moved closer to her job. I skipped trips so she could do expensive retreats. I wasn't perfect, but I showed up. Hearing her rewrite our marriage into a story where she was the martyr made my anger flare so sharp I felt dizzy. And then she said the line that finally tied the bow on my fear. "A friend has been helping me see things more clearly." A friend. My stomach dropped again, lower this time.
Because that wasn't therapy. It wasn't my sister. It wasn't "I've been thinking." It was strategy. I kept my voice controlled because I didn't trust what would happen if I let emotion drive.
"Oh," I said. "Okay." She blinked, like she expected a fight, like she expected me to beg. Instead, I said, "If that's what you want, we can figure out next steps." My calm wasn't maturity, it was exhaustion. It was my nervous system going numb, a betrayal trauma response I didn't have words for yet. The hypervigilance, the intrusive replays, the inability to relax in your own home. She went to bed that night without touching me. I sat in the dark and stared at the wall until my eyes burned. On Monday, the papers arrived. Not a conversation, not a gentle plan. Legal documents. And the demands inside them weren't fair. They weren't, "let's separate peacefully." They were aggressive, specific, hungry. Half the house, half the savings, half my investments, the car. Even a line about support that made no sense given her salary. It read like someone had coached her to go for the throat. And I had this surreal moment where I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly aligned with the nightmare I'd been quietly preparing for. I didn't show her the trust paperwork. Not yet. I just nodded, signed where I needed to acknowledge receipt, and told her my lawyer would respond. Maya watched me like she was trying to figure out if I understood the game. I didn't sleep again. Anger kept me awake. Anger and this humiliating grief that felt like my chest had been filled with wet sand. I started digging. Not hacking, not stalking, just noticing the obvious things I ignored because I wanted to be a good husband. Her social media, mostly clean, nothing explicit, but there was one name that showed up too often: Jake. He liked her photos quickly, commented supportive things. "You've got this. Proud of you." At first glance, it looked harmless, but then I saw a photo on his profile, a cafe. The cafe. The same one I'd seen Maya outside, pacing, saying "starting fresh." My body went cold in that old familiar way, like my skin had learned the truth before my brain would accept it. I scrolled more. A selfie that looked like it was taken in a building I didn't recognize, but the lighting in the hallway looked disturbingly similar to Maya's new apartment she'd mentioned casually when talking about separating. Nothing that would hold up in court, but enough to hold up my rage. I tried calling one of Maya's friends, Lisa, keeping my voice light. "Hey, has Maya been okay? She mentioned a friend helping. I just want to understand." Lisa stiffened immediately. She gave vague answers, then ended the call too quickly. I tried another friend, Emily. Same reaction, deflection, fear. Then Emily called back, voice low. "I don't want this coming back to me," she said. "I promise it won't," I promised. Long pause. Then, "She's been spending time with a guy from work, Jake, and he's been advising her, like on what to ask for." I sat down hard at my kitchen table. My hands were shaking again. Not because I didn't expect it, because I did. Because knowing and proving are two different kinds of pain. That weekend, I parked a block away from Maya's apartment building. I hated myself for it. I felt pathetic. But I needed to see something real, something I couldn't talk myself out of. 2 hours later, Maya walked out with Jake.
They didn't hold hands. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. They moved like people who already belonged together, close, coordinated, leaning towards each other when they spoke. They got in his car and drove off. And I sat there staring at the empty curb like I'd been left behind by my own life. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. That was my betrayal moment. Not the papers, not the money. The sight of her stepping into a car with someone else as if my marriage was already history. I went home and cried in the shower where the water could hide it. I'm not proud of that. I'm not ashamed of it either. It's just what happened when my brain finally stopped trying to patch the story. Then came mediation. Maya arrived with her lawyer in a binder so thick it looked like they were suing a corporation. Her lawyer spoke confidently, listing demands like they were obvious. Maya sat with her chin slightly raised, eyes hard. She didn't look like someone heartbroken. She looked like someone expecting a payout. When it was our turn, my attorney slid a stack of documents across the table. I didn't speak. My mouth was too dry. My heart was pounding too loud. Maya's lawyer flipped through the pages. I watched his expression change. Confident, confused, then tight. He looked up. "What is this?" My attorney's voice was calm, almost bored. Documentation showing the transfer of major assets into an irrevocable trust weeks before filing. The room went quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear someone breathe wrong. Maya snatched the papers from her lawyer and scanned them faster, like speed could turn reality into fiction. Her face flushed red, then pale. She looked at me like I'd committed a crime against her. "You planned this," she hissed. I didn't answer. Because what could I say? Yes, I saw you drifting away, whispering into your phone, asking for passwords, moving money, lining up a replacement, and I decided I wasn't going to be your victim. Her lawyer leaned towards her and said something under his breath that looked a lot like, "You didn't tell me this." Maya's eyes went wild. "I can't believe you do this," she snapped, voice rising. I stared at her, and for the first time in months, I felt something clean. Not love, not hope, clarity. "I already regret trusting you," I said quietly. "That's the only regret I have." She looked like I slapped her. And then, in the hallway afterwards, she grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks. "This isn't over," she said. "You're going to regret it." I pulled my arm away. I didn't feel powerful. I felt tired. Because winning a war inside your marriage doesn't feel like winning. It feels like standing in the ashes of what you thought your life was. That's when Maya tried to backtrack. It started with voicemails, soft at first. "I think we just need to talk. I didn't mean it to go this far." Then angry. "You're cruel. You're controlling." Then sobbing. "I made a mistake." And here's the most reality TV part of it. She also started telling stories to friends. First, she claimed the divorce filing was a prank. A prank, like legal paperwork is a whoopee cushion. When people questioned that, because obviously they did, she changed it into a test. "I was testing our relationship," she told mutual friends, and he failed. Some people bought it for a minute because people love a dramatic narrative and hate complicated truth. I got texts from acquaintances that made my stomach turn. "Wow, I didn't realize things were so bad." Her brother even called me and snapped, "You didn't have to go nuclear." I wanted to scream. I wanted to forward him the divorce demands and say, "This is nuclear." But I didn't, because I'd learned something ugly. Once someone starts controlling the story, you can't argue them out of it. You can only outlast the lie until it collapses under its own stupidity. Then a friend, Matt, not even close to me, just close enough to me, asked to meet me. He looked uncomfortable, like he was carrying something gross. He showed me screenshots, texts between Maya and Jake, and I swear I felt my heart stop for a half second as my eyes scanned the words. "Maya, once the settlement's done, we'll have everything we need. Jake, don't back down. Make him feel guilty if you have to. He owes you." There it was. Not "I'm heartbroken," not "I'm confused." A plan, a playbook, a strategy that used my guilt as a weapon. I sat there staring at the phone, and this deep, furious sadness settled into my bones. Because it wasn't just betrayal, it was premeditation. It was what people call monkey branching, lining up the next life before letting go of the current one. And the worst part was, it wasn't even romantic, it was transactional. I didn't show the screenshots to everyone. I didn't blast her online. But word spread. It always does. People talk. People gossip. People love feeling like they were right to doubt someone. The friends who defended her got quiet. The friends who stayed neutral started avoiding her. And Jake, though, he vanished the second it became clear there was no payday. He stopped appearing, stopped commenting, stopped being her friend. Which, honestly, was the most disgusting part of all, watching her realize she'd been used too. Maya's calls shifted again. Now it was pleading. "I'll drop everything if you just talk to me. I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry." I didn't answer. Not because I was strong, because if I answered, I was afraid I'd fall back into the version of me that wanted to fix everything, even when I was bleeding. The divorce finalized fast after that. Her lawyer backed off because there was nothing left to claw at. I kept the house. My savings stayed mine. The trust held. On paper, I won. And here's the moral twist, the part nobody wants to admit out loud because it ruins the clean victim story. When I moved those assets, I became a liar too.
I justified it as survival. Maybe it was, but it was still secrecy, still deception, still me doing financial moves behind my spouse's back, something experts literally call financial infidelity when one partner hides money decisions or assets from the other. Maya tried to rob me first, but I didn't beat her with love. I beat her with paperwork. And in the months after everything ended, that reality haunted me more than I expected. Because I didn't walk away feeling clean. I walked away feeling changed. For a long time, I couldn't relax. My body stayed in that betrayal trauma mode, hypervigilant, scanning for danger, replaying conversations, hearing her voice say, "I deserve more," like it was branded into my nervous system. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. convinced I forgot some detail, some loophole, some way she could still hurt me. I stopped trusting my own judgment because part of me kept asking, how did I miss it? How did I love someone and not see who they were becoming? And the uncomfortable answer was, I did see it. I just kept sanding down the truth until it fit inside my preferred story. That's the awakening part no one claps for. I wasn't blind. I was bargaining. I was so afraid of being alone, so afraid of the humiliation that I ignored the signs until the signs turned into paperwork. And even now, I can admit something else. Maya didn't turn into a villain overnight. She drifted, she detached, she rehearsed a new identity, or she was the hero leaving a marriage that held her back. That's what some people call the walkaway pattern. Slow emotional withdrawal, decreased communication, pulling out of shared life before the announcement ever comes. Maybe she convinced herself she deserved it. Maybe Jake convinced her. Maybe the internet did what it always does and turned a complicated marriage into a simple script. Take what you can, you're owed. But here's what I learned, and it's not pretty. When someone asks you for your passwords for emergencies and you feel fear instead of teamwork, the emergency already happened. You just haven't named it yet. My mom helped me repaint the house after Maya moved out. She showed up with drop cloths and cheap brushes and that blunt, practical love she's always had. At one point, she looked at me and said, "You did what you had to do." And I nodded because that's what I wanted to believe. But later, alone, I stared at the freshly painted wall and realized I wasn't just grieving Maya. I was grieving the version of me who thought love automatically protected you. I don't think it does. I think love is a choice you make every day. And when someone stops choosing it, the paperwork is just the final stage. These days, I'm calmer, not healed, calmer. I've started telling the truth faster in my life because I'm terrified of what happens when you keep swallowing it. I've learned that keeping the peace often means letting someone quietly rewrite your reality. And I've learned that winning a divorce doesn't mean you win your innocence back.
So here's my question for you, because I honestly don't know the answer and I'm still wrestling with it. If you sense betrayal coming, do you protect yourself in secret? Or does that make you part of what's breaking?